welcome to my channel. I want to say a big hello and welcome to all new and returning viewers, and if by chance you've stumbled across this channel is all about cross stitch with a bit of life stuff thrown in. And this episode is a culmination or combination of weeks 2 and 3 of the spooky spring stitching that is new to me, new to this channel, because I just wanted to try something a little bit different with my stitching and really try and get into the theme and swing of Halloween, because here in Australia, we're a bit of a mixed bag in terms of how much we get into Halloween and the spooky season. I definitely enjoy horror movies, especially psychological thrillers, and I love reading ghost stories and those murder mystery almost type of books as well. And I am a huge fan of the TV series Supernatural. So that's part of where I'm coming from with the type of stitching that I'm trying to do a little bit during the month of October. And also, I'm using a decision maker spin the wheel app to help decide what projects I'm going to work on each day. So that's just a really rough guide of how I've been stitching over the last couple of weeks. And if you would like a better explanation of what I'm trying to do for this month, go and check out my episode from a couple of weeks ago, which was for the first 7 days of the spooky spring stitching. So hopefully you'll get a better idea of what's going on. So what I'm going to do for the next half hour or touch longer is go through the last couple of weeks, and I'll be kicking off from where I left off from my last episode. Just before we get into the project that I had spun for the 8th of October, I just want to acknowledge that today is Sunday, the 22nd of October, because that's going to have an influence on the end of this episode and spinning the wheel to find out what project I'm going to be working on for hopefully a good portion of today. But we'll have to wait and see. That said, at the end of my last episode, I guess nearly 2 weeks ago now, I had spun the wheel and the project called Shrooms came up, and I was really excited about, and I'm still excited about this project having been spun, because it's a chart that I've had in my collection or stash for a few years. So it's a Heaven and Earth chart based on the artwork by John Shannon called Shrooms. And I love the colors in it, and I love that it's got the element of spookiness because of the light that's coming out of, I guess, the flowers that are around the shrooms. It's got that moodiness about it, and that's where I decided to start the project in the center of the chart, because that's where all the coolness and the excitement is. And so this is where I'm at. I was able to get 226 stitches into it just in the afternoon of Sunday, because enjoying life at the time. And so this is being stitched 1 over 1, and I'll just bring it in a little bit closer because I'm just I'm admiring the neatness of my stitches, because it doesn't always happen. There are times when I'm distracted or knots happen in my threads, so the tension isn't always uniform. That said, I'm looking forward to getting some more progress done on this. So hopefully, fingers crossed, when I next spin the wheel, shrooms will come up again. Okay, let's go on to the next day. Okay, on the 9th of October, Moonlit Waters came up, and it was really nice to work on this project because to me it still has a bit of that Halloween theme because it's a fairy. And Moonlit Waters is a heaven and earth design based on the artwork by Julie Fain. And this is a chart that I have had in my collection for several years, but not the digital chart. The digital chart has been with me for just a few years. I can't remember the exact period of time. I had the physical chart for a while. I think I got about 3 pages completed, and it was by that stage that I decided that there had to be a better way of working on these full coverage projects. And it was around that time when I started getting into Flosstube in terms of looking up YouTube, using the key terms of cross stitch and similar wording, and that's when I started to hear about Pattern Keeper, and I started doing internal happy dances when I downloaded the app, started using it and importing the charts that I had or purchasing new ones, and it was awesome. It was a game changer to me, and that's when I decided to purchase the digital chart, and unknowingly I purchased the Max Colors one, and I went through a stage of discomfort as I started adding some of the extra colors that the Max Colors chart has that the physical pattern didn't, because it must have been just the regular chart that I had, not the minimum colors, not the max colors, just the down the middle part pattern. So that said, I think I've personalized it enough to be able to incorporate those additional colors without adjusting the integrity of the chart. So this is where I'm at. And I've been working on the wings in terms of filling them in. So you'll hopefully see a difference between the progress that I've made and what it was looking like before. And this is where I'm really looking forward to putting some more work into this and seeing a lot more progress. Hopefully it'll come up in the spins into the future, not just during the spooky spring stitching. But let's check out the next few days. On the 10th of October, the Blue Mountains Walking Trail came up, and this was one of 2 installments that I got to do with the Blue Mountains Walking Trail. So what I'm going to do here is insert some progress pictures to help show what progress I have made with it, and appreciating that it is I'm working on a section that has a lot of confetti in it, and when I use the word confetti, I need to pause just a little bit before I use the word, because I have my friend using the word graffiti instead, and I don't know why she uses the word graffiti. It might have been the way that I was talking when, I guess, during one of our stitching sessions, where I'd say, oh yeah, there's a whole heap of confetti in this project that I'm working on, and because of the way I pronounce the word and how she might have been hearing me because she was concentrating on what she was doing as well, her brain interpreted the word as graffiti instead, and it makes me chuckle and I love it. And there are times where I want to try and correct her and say, no, 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 it's confetti, it's confetti. That said, it's like, no, I know I get words wrong all the time. I don't always pronounce them properly or correctly, or I'll mishear people, and it's my own quirk, and I know that I'm not alone on this one either. So hopefully you've seen my progress pictures for the Blue Mountains walking trail, and let's get on to the 11th of October. I had a bit of a chuckle when I had spun the wheel on the 11th of October because the inner works of life came up again. I had been hoping that I'd have another spooky kind of stitching project come up, but the decision wheel had other ideas. So, with Inner Works of Life, I also want to note that it wasn't just on the 11th of October that it came up. So, similar to the 10th of October, I'm just going to show you some of my progress pictures for the Inner Works of Life for the 11th of October. And when it does come up again, yet again, you will hopefully see even more progress that I've made with the Inner Works of Life. On the 12th of October, the decision wheel spinning app thing that I'm using, it brought up the Tilton Crafts chart of Love Ocean. And it was the second time that I had worked on the project in the space of 2 weeks. So this is the chart, or the cover page for the chart specifically. And I have decided to start in the top left corner, which is the really boring bit. And at the moment, the camera's not quite picking up where I've been doing the stitching. So hopefully you'll see the pictures of my progress, and it'll show a bit more clearly where I've been doing the stitches. So with this particular chart, similar to Shrooms, I probably should have started in the center of the chart because that's where all the exciting bits are, at least to me. And I know that it won't take too long and I'll eventually get close to the exciting bits, and it may be a case where I work through the project in a slight diagonal way, and that way I'll get to appreciate the blocks of colour as well as seeing the excitement in the main bits of the chart that really drew me to it and was a part of the reason why I purchased it. So fingers crossed in my summertime stitching we'll have this chart show up a bit more. From the 13th of October through to about the 15th, life wasn't settled. The exciting thing is that on the 13th of October, I spun the wheel for Trick or Treat 2, and I'm feeling conflicted with Trick or Treat 2, and I'll get to it a little bit later because Trick or Treat 2 came up for me on the 13th of October, and it also came up on the 18th. So when I get up to the 18th of October, I'll talk a bit more to it, and I'll fill in the details about the design of the chart and all that jazz and show you my progress of it. So what I'll do is I'll just talk a little bit about life stuff because that has had a heavy influence on why I didn't spin the wheel for the 14th or 15th of October because I was traveling. I got to head down to Canberra just for a very big whirlwind, hi, bye kind of situation. I wanted to head down to Canberra to give my friend the Water Tiger 2 present. Her birthday was on the 18th of October, and it was really good to be able to give her that present. I had wrapped it up in birthday paper, wrapping paper, and she opened it up on her birthday. And just based on the message I received from her, it sounds like she really liked the picture, and knowing that I put a lot of time and effort into it, she, yeah, I think has appreciated it a bit more compared with some of our non-stitching family and friends when they receive gifts from us, if they haven't watched us do cross stitch before or any similar crafting endeavors. So that felt really good knowing that I got to give her that present, and it was really good to be able to see some family as well. Technology was not my friend on Sunday, the 15th of October, because I tried to do a Flosstube recording to share with you all of the stitching that I'd done during that week. And a part of my challenge had been the fact that I was in a rush. I had really wanted to try and get the filming and the editing done by a particular time so I could then sit down, really chill and relax and unwind after driving as well, because I had driven myself down to Canberra. My boyfriend had travelled separately because he needed to stay in Canberra for a couple of extra days at least, and that's where I could have worked from Canberra, and I guess I decided not to. I was like, no, I just want to come back up here so that way I can be in the office and get some work done there. So that's where technology decided, look, no, your headspace isn't in it. Yes, you can do the recording. Yes, you can do all these things, but the universe has other plans. So that's why I've got this all jam packed in. That said, let's get on to the 16th of October. Scaredy Cats by Heaven and Earth Designs. This was the project that came up for me on the 16th of October, and the artwork is by Jeff Haney. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about this particular project because, as we can see with this cover picture, I love the moodiness of it. I love the colors of the purples in the background and just these sweet little kittens who are hiding behind the pumpkin. And it was all those elements that drew me to that chart and why it's now in my collection. And with the stitching, this has been I'm just going to share with you where I'm at with it. And I guess it's my disappointment really of how the background is looking. And it could be just that I'm still in the early stages with this project, and that perhaps with the background looking like it is, that might help with a focus on the actual center of the chart where we see the pumpkin and where we see the cats or the kittens. I'm hoping that will be the case. And I don't know, it's a case where I'm falling out of love with it. And I don't like falling out of love with projects. And the other thing that I also want to point out, part of why this might be looking a bit strange, is that this is a mixture of 2/1 and 1/1. So 2 threads over 1 fabric square compared with 1 thread over 1 fabric square. This was because I when I first started the chart, I think I was in the headspace of stitching two two threads over one fabric square for a small account, like with 14 or 18 count. And so initially I didn't think anything of it when I was doing the two threads over one fabric square, because this is 25 count even weave or linen. Anyway, it's a kind of fabric that doesn't quite lend itself to the 2/1. So this is where I slowly have transitioned from the 2/1 to 1/1. And because I've got some fabric sitting behind it, it's not too bad at the moment. It is very thin fabric though, so I do need to be gentle with it. And when I am done with this project, I will be able I'll be able to, and I probably will, have some extra fabric sitting behind it just to help that the stitches really stand out. And on the 16th of October, in my notes, it looks like I was only able to get an hour of stitching done on it, getting roughly 84, maybe 85 stitches into it. I'm trying to remember why. It could have been that it was a Monday. That's right. It was Monday after work. I had spent a bit of time trying to fix and do some editing with the Flosstube episode that I wanted to do for the second week of this spooky spring stitching. And that's where I came to find that technology and the universe very much had different ideas about the episode and what it was going to look like. So here we are. And it was nice to get a bit of stitching done because it is therapeutic for me. It helps to unwind, relax, and focus on the task at hand with a bit of background noise going on, usually noise from the TV, and it just helps to pass the time as well. It's that really nice creative outlet. That said, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, so I won't ramble on much more about that. Let's get on to the next day's stitching and what project came up for me then. So on the 17th of October, the inner works of life came up again. So this is where I get to share with you the cover picture and the progress that I've made on this project, because I know that earlier in this episode I had mentioned that around the 11th of October, the inner works of life had come up, and this is another Heaven and Earth design, and it's based on the artwork by Stephanie Law. And I love this chart because it is the same artwork that I have for a journal that I use, and it is beautiful. I just love the artwork, and I'm really hoping that my stitching can do the artwork justice. And I know that if Heaven and Earth are anything to go by, ignoring what I was saying just before about Scaredy Cats, 99% of the time, Heaven and Earth charts are beautiful. They always come out just absolutely stunning. So that's why I have trust and faith in everything else that I'm working on for this. So with the inner works of life, this is where I'm at. It's very much a project that is going to take me several years to get done, and I have started near the center of the chart, and that's partly because I'm a little uncertain of how much fabric I have. I've definitely got heaps of fabric. As you can see, I've got this all folded up, and it's one of those, I think the acronym I've heard some floss tubers say that it's a BAF, or BAP, a big project, something like that. BAP, that sounds about right. B for Bob, A for Apple, P for project. So it is one of those. And the great thing is that I have many BAPs in my collection that I'm working on that you've seen. So it's going to keep me entertained for a long time. And I'm excited with this project that even though I have a lot of light colors in it, I know that a lot of these colors are starting to really make themselves known. And I will insert some progress pictures in as well because I'm just not 100% certain that they're appearing the way that they need to be on camera, so compared with real life. So fingers crossed you can see what's going on. And I have also sort of done circles around the areas that I've worked on, because even when I've finished stitching for that night, and I've got bright lights here, even though it's daylight now, I've got bright lights, and for when I'm stitching at night, my tired eyes are a little bit like, now where was it that I was stitching again? So hopefully as the project goes on, it'll make sense to me at least. Okay, so in Works of Life, I'm not 100% certain on how many stitches I did on those two occurrences. That said, what I do like is that I have overall put 1,224 stitches into the project, which ends up being 0.64% of the project. And Pattern Keeper is telling me that it has a total of 196,400 stitches in it. Well, that's a lot. That said, I love it. I love the fact that it is a lifetime project almost, and that it is one of those projects that is going to be adding to the variety that I get to work on. Speaking of variety, let's finally get back to some spooky stitching. So on the 18th and 13th of October, Trick or Treat 2 came up for stitching, and the main chart I'm going to refer to is the Heaven and Earth design based on the artwork by Randall Spangler. And I came across this particular chart on Etsy, what feels like quite a few years ago, because I wanted to stitch on a Halloween spooky themed project. And this was well before I really understood that on Etsy, I guess like with anywhere on the internet, there will be some stores that infringe copyright. And as a buyer, I shouldn't have to worry about that kind of thing. That said, my eyes have been opened up since then, and that's part of why Trick or Treat 2 was paused for several years, because when I found out that the chart I'd purchased from Etsy had been potentially an infringement on copyright, I couldn't bring myself to work on it because my morals wouldn't allow me to, and I didn't feel comfortable with it. And that's where I paused it for a while. And when Heaven and Earth Designs had a sale on, I was doing some searches on it to see what was available, if there was anything that tickled my fancy. And that's when I came across the Trick or Treat 2 and Randall Spangler's artwork. And I felt really excited because it was like, yes, I feel like I can redeem myself in a way by purchasing that chart and knowing that the money I have spent is going to the right people. And I still have a moral dilemma because the progress I'm about to share with you, I've made a fair bit of progress, and I'm curious about your thoughts, if you have any, on what I should do. I've got some ideas, but I'm just curious about your thoughts. So this is where I'm at. Uh, I started stitching this a few years ago on 18 count Ada, and it's the kind of Ada that is initially stiff as cardboard. Uh, but once I start working with it and the warmth of my hands, it becomes a little bit more manageable. So the stitching that we see here is based on the infringed copyright chart. And as much as I hate to say it, I like what they've done in terms of how they've blended colours and made it look pretty cool. That's what drew me to the chart and why I purchased it. And the awkwardness, though, is if I try to do something similar to Moonlit Waters Max Colours by pausing my stitching on the chart that I purchased from Etsy and then start working on the Heaven and Earth chart, it's just not going to look right. So where my headspace is going is that I perhaps could finish the stitching of the sky, which would incorporate the witch that is flying across the moon. I could, yeah, get all a bit of as much a background as I can be done on the background sky, and then see if I can do stitching on the house. The challenge, however, is that like with all Hades, they are charted for 25 count fabric, and I'm stitching this one on 18 count. So the proportions of things are just going to be completely out of whack. And that's where I'm also contemplating stitching the banner across the top. And it would mean that we would have the top of the gable. We would have a part of the roof and a part of the chimney in view. We would have most of the witch and the moon. We would have the tops of the trees, and we would have all of the bats. And I could potentially stop the stitching there. I could make something out of what I have already stitched. I'm not quite sure what it would be. Perhaps it could be part of mishmash of the little bits of stitching that I've done, such as, what else could it be? There's been bookmarks, there's other UFOs that are in my stash that could feed into it. Because I've got such a significant fabric border, I could even do some other embellishments and such along the edges that again are potentially Halloween themed. The other thought is that I'd just continue on stitching the infringed copy of the chart, and then in X amount of years' time, when I've finished Trick or Treat to the infringed copy, I could then start on the proper copyright Trick or Treat 2 and stitch it on the 25 count fabric and see how that goes and have the comparisons between the two. That's a little bit of where my headspace is going. So I'm very much curious about your thoughts on this one and whether you've experienced any infringed copy purchases. So you, as a stitcher, you have unknowingly purchased a cross stitch chart that a little bit later you found out was an infringed piece. So I also want to acknowledge that in different countries there are different copyright laws, and in Australia I know that the I don't know the ins and outs of copyright, but I know enough to know that the charts that I'm selling, for example, I am the original creator of those charts, and therefore I automatically own copyright on those pieces. And if I am going to create other charts that are based on artwork by other people, I need to acknowledge that person first off straight away, similar to, I guess, the same as what Heaven and Earth Designs do, that they say that the artwork is by, in this case, Randall Spangler. I would also need to perhaps compensate that person as well. I'd need to compensate the artist in whatever appropriate agreement terms that the artist and I can come to, and then go from there, or get some special licensing for that artwork if that's the case, or similar to what some other floss tubers and designers do. They do the in Australia it's known as Creative Commons. I'm not quite sure what it's called in other countries. The other terms I can think of are copyright free charts, or not charts, copyright free designs, or images or something like that, or they are images that have surpassed the time frame of copyright. And here in Australia I know that for some images, and each type of image will vary, so I'm thinking photographs, for example, or in some instances pieces of artwork, if they are roughly 100 years or older, then they're out of the scope of copyright. Please don't quote me on that. If you are curious about copyright, please go and do your own searches and investigating and educate yourself on those things. So these are just my basic understandings of copyright, and I need to educate myself a little bit more as well around that. So that's part of the conundrum I have with Trick or Treat 2, and that's my ramble about why I am struggling with it. And it's part of where I'm curious about your thoughts and experiences around this sort of thing. So that said, let's get on to the 19th of October and the stitching that I've done on those pieces. So on the 19th of October, this is when I started hiding some of the some of the cells on the random picker generator wheel thing app. I can't remember the name of it on my phone, because I am getting towards the end of October and I'm not stitching on as much spooky stuff as what I would like, because I know that I have two charts in the wheel that I know are new starts. They haven't even come up in the spins yet. And then there's another chart that I'm thinking of that I would love to have come up as well, because it's His Master's Voice Mini, and it featured a bit in the AFL Stitching Challenge that I did earlier this year. It hasn't come up either. So this is where I have made a conscious effort of hiding the cells or slivers, whatever they're meant to be called, in the wheel spin when they are non-spooky pieces, like the Blue Mountains Walking Trail. So the Blue Mountains Walking Trail is one of my pieces, one of my own designs. So hot cross stitching, and this is based on a photo up in the Blue Mountains here in Australia, and this photo was taken a few years ago. I can't remember the exact time frame, and I love the waterfalls, the trees, and everything in it. And this is the chart that I was talking a little bit about before, back on the 10th of October. And I had gotten about 64 to 68 stitches on it, and that had been largely due to some running that I needed to get done on the treadmill because I just wasn't feeling it for the morning, and it was part of my training that I really wanted to get done. So, with the Blue Mountains Walking Trail, this is where I'm at, and I'll include some pictures as well on where I've actually stitched. And so, this is what I look at when I am stitching it because of the way that the chart has imported into Pattern Keeper. But this is the way that it needs to be seen. And for ages, when I've been talking about this fabric, with it being the easy grid fabric and all the rest, I fully thought that these pink squares, that these would just be 200 stitches. I I was yesterday years old when I realized that they are 400 stitches each. Not because I was working on this piece and how squares got marked off, but yesterday I got to work on another new start, and I've chosen to stitch that new start on this type of fabric as well. And when I started marking things off on the chart in Pattern Keeper, that's when I realized I felt foolish because I thought, oh yeah, this is just 200 stitches. 200 is nothing. 200 is still a lot, but the fact that this is 400 stitches, it can take a lot when you're dealing with confetti stitching. So that's where I'm glad that I've learnt my lesson and that I get to say, hey, I'm mapped up. I know I can't count. I'll be one of the first people to put my hand up to say that I know I can't count very well. And that there are times when I'm doing cross stitch, and I've had a good laugh about it as well, that I at times feel like I need to go back to school to learn how to count, because cross stitching has taught me that when I think I've counted 10, I've counted 12, or I've counted 8, or anything but the number 10. So this is where I love that with this project, it is really starting to make some progress. I'm seeing progress with this, because what we're seeing here, as much as it looks like a splash of color, these are some of the fern fronds. These are some of the leaves and such of the the plants that are at the walking trail that we did. So it's nice seeing some progress on that one, and I'm glad that I've learnt that one square is equal to 400 stitches, and that this fabric is robust fabric. It is fabric where I still need to be careful with my stitches in terms of how the thread moves in that little square, but it's not as, I don't have to be as gentle compared with stitching on linen or anything like that. So that's really nice. I'm rambling. Let's get on to the next day stitching. Okay, so the 20th of October. Again, not a spooky stitch came up, and this is where I'm glad that I've made the decision to start hiding those pie pieces. Again, I haven't figured out the terms yet for the non-spooky stitching. And Summer and Stars Hollow came up. And I'm actually glad that this one came up, because I needed to do a bit of frogging for the really fun, happy, vibrant blues that we see at the moment that are near the the yellows. So I, ages ago when I'd first started working on this project, I had miscounted this area here. So I needed to frog this area here, then stitch, not fully unpick it, but enough to get that sorted. So I've been able to fix that up and stitch down here. I've been able to finish stitching a bit of the roof along here, the purples and greys that we see. And I have started working on some of the teal colours as well, where we start seeing the posts for the veranda and some of the windows for the house. And I do enjoy seeing progress on this one, because this feels like it moves a lot quicker compared with some of my other projects that I'm working on. So I also need to note that this particular chart that I'm working on is by the Black Needle Society, and I don't have a proper cover page for this one because it's a digital chart, and the way that it imported into Pattern Keeper, it doesn't come up with a cover picture like I'm able to show you with many of the other charts. So this is where, similar to what I was talking about in last fortnight's episode, that do some searches on Instagram for Summer and Stars Hollow and any similar keywords with the Black Needle Society and all the like, because you will see some of the amazing stitching that people have done for Summer and Stars Hollow and Spring and Stars Hollow and Autumn and Stars Hollow, because Katie Landers especially, she's designed the chart to be this one long rectangle piece to have the different seasons joined together as this one long piece, and it looks fantastic. It really does, and I feel privileged to be part of stitching that piece, because it was part of a Summer and Stars Hollow stitching box, part of the online stitching retreat, and I've really been enjoying the three boxes so far. We've got our last one coming up towards the end of March, and it's going to be bittersweet because it'll be the last one in the Stars Hollow series. However, I know that it's definitely not the last box that the Black Needle Society will ever do, because if you have participated in these sort of retreats before, or you follow the Black Needle Society, or whatever other variation there is, you hopefully have heard about their stitching boxes, or you've received one, or anything like that. So I hope that into the future I can purchase some more of their boxes and participate in some more of their online retreats, because I just absolutely love connecting with the Black Needle Society and all of the participants as well. It's been a lot of fun so far. That said, I am getting a little bit mushy, and we are getting towards the last couple of days of my stitching catching up. And let's get on to, what are we getting on to? The 21st of October, so yesterday. We're getting towards the end of the episode. Yeah, let's do this. I was really happy when this chart came up on the spinning wheel, because it is to me, spooky themed piece. It is called The Reader. It is a heaven and earth design, and it's based on the artwork by Lisa Parker. I love Lisa Parker's artwork. I think she is an amazing artist, and similar to Randall Spangler's artwork, I love seeing the artwork he's put together with the dragons in different scenarios, and I love seeing those charts coming to life through the different Flosstube episodes I've been watching, and it is really cool because they are fun, they are colourful, and they're fun. Lisa Parker's artwork is a little bit different. They are moodier. That said, I'm in admiration of what she does. So this is the reader. I had purchased this chart perhaps 3 to 4 years ago as part of some other charts similar to this one. The other one that you have seen me start working on is his Master's Voice Mini. And when this particular chart came up for me to start working on, I was putting together the pieces that I needed to make a start. And this one's going to be a big one. To help put into context, I'm 90% certain that I'm stitching on 25 count fabric. And this is my progress so far. And I've started up in the top left corner where there's a lot of black. So this is where I learned that these pink squares we see are 20 by 20, which means that these are 400 stitches. So because I have at least 2 to 3 pages vertically, hopefully I can be coordinated with this. So if we look at the black on either side of the reader, it's all black. So this is where I've decided to do tent stitching. This is going to be a conscious effort, and with this it is 2/1, so 2 DMC strands over 1 fabric square, and the camera isn't picking it up too much, but I've actually still got a bit of the fabric showing through, partly because of the way that I've done the tent stitches. That said, I now have a greater appreciation for why many full coverage people are choosing to do tent stitch for a lot of their pieces, because you get through it just so much quicker, pretty much in half the time that it takes to do it in full cross, understandably. And this is where it'll be interesting to see how my brain goes when I get to the reader and to the center areas of the chart, because when we get to the reader and the tarot cards that we see and the table that the cards are on, that's where I want to do full cross. And it'll be interesting. I hope that I can find that right transition, and hopefully my brain can be awake enough to be able to recognize, going, okay, this is where we are in the chart, this is what we are doing now. I am looking forward to seeing how that goes, and I love that with this tent stitch I was able to get 860 plus stitches into this start, and that was in about 2 to 3 hours perhaps, because when I was working on this, I did the main chunk of this when watching Netflix. I actually got to watch the original movie called Halloween. That was one of the first movie that Jamie Lee Curtis was in, and I know that there's been at least one remake of Halloween, and there's been additional installments to it. I think for Halloween, I think it's become a trilogy. So I really wanted to see the original and understand what the hype might have been, and understand how things came about for Mike Myers, the character, to get an understanding of then how that storyline may carry through to the other films that have followed after it. And I'm thinking that if it's available on Netflix or one of the other streaming services I have available, to try and see the original Friday the 13th, because that I think could be really cool as well, to really help with being in the mood for Halloween and the spooky season. And I know that for many people, the spooky season for some of our cross stitch community members, Halloween is not quite 24/7, but it is all year round. And for me, yeah, I can take it or leave it. I do, like I said earlier, enjoy watching and reading and even listening to true crime, murder mystery, horrors, psychological thrillers, all that kind of genre. And that has definitely helped a lot with the spooky stitching a bit as well. So we'll have to wait and see. That said, when I felt that I'd put enough work into the reader with 860 plus stitches, I was feeling this tug to get back to one of my own cross stitch pieces, because I feel like I've been neglecting them a bit and I would like to see a bit more progress on them. And this is where I, for a couple of hours, did some work on Dewdrop Daisy. So when I had done my episode on my whip parade to help round out the AFL stitching challenge, I had done some calculations to confirm that I had maybe a smidgen over 15,000 stitches to do on Dewdrop Daisy before it would be finished. And to me, 15,000 stitches are achievable. So this is my hot cross stitching design, Dewdrop Daisy. It is available on my Etsy store and my main website as well. And I've been stitching this on 2/1. The fabric is 28 count linen, and the purple is originally the fabric was white, and I had dyed it myself. So this is where I'm at, and it's looking really good. I know that it's going to be pretty tight at the bottom. So where we see the green at the very bottom there, that's the bottom of the chart, bottom of the design. And the really good thing is that when I trim the side here, I'll be able to move some of that fabric to the bottom to help with the framing side of things. And depending on where my headspace is at for this piece when I finished it, I'm contemplating either framing it myself or getting it professionally done. Getting it professionally done will mean that it will cost quite a lot of money, but you're paying for a premium service. So that's that balance there. And this is a piece that I'm interested in entering into some of the shows here in Australia. I've potentially mentioned that in the Whip Parade that I did a few weeks ago. And that means that hopefully in a couple of years' time, when I've got this piece finished and framed, that I'll be able to enter it into some of those shows. The main one I'm thinking of, or the first show to enter it in, would be the Canberra Royal Show, which happens in February, towards the end of February. It's typically the last weekend, give or take, of February. So it'll be worth it in the end. It really will. I know that when I have finished this piece, I may be pedantic and go back over it with a fine tooth comb and double check some of the stitches to see if I can somehow gently update them in terms of how the cross has been made. I may also end up being at the stage where it's like, okay, it is what it is. I accept that this is not perfect, and I would be curious to see what feedback the judges may be able to give if there are any concerns about the quality of the stitches and how uniform they are. And I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. It is at the moment just about getting the stitching done and getting this piece finished, because the the finish line is getting there. It's in the far distance at the moment, but I am starting to see the checkered flag, and it'll be a big celebration when it does happen, because even though out of shot I do have the bottle brush mini finished and I have finished other of my own designs, this one just feels a lot more special, because I know that many of you have been part of this journey for quite a long time now, and I look forward to celebrating the finish with you. Okay, so that said, let's find out what I'm going to be stitching tomorrow. Not tomorrow. I mean, we can do tomorrow, but let's find out about today. Okay, so this is the app that I use. It's called Spin the Wheel Random Picker, and the other wheels that you see here, the bottom three, they are example wheels. This is a free app that I'm using on my Android phone, and I guess it just shows some examples of how I can use the app and how I can create my own wheels and such. So the wheel that I've created is called Spooky Stitching, and given that I have hidden a couple of chips pie pieces, whatever you want to call them, these are the amount, not the amounts, these are the charts that I have left in the wheel. So let's find out what I'm going to be stitching today. Okay. Okay, Dewdrop Daisy. Okay, it's good. Like I was saying, good to get it done. I think I should have finished talking about some spooky stitching rather than finishing talking on Dewdrop Daisy, because I know that the devices in this house or anywhere that I am listen to conversations. That's how we get our ad suggestions, recommendations, and all the rest that pop up on social media. So this is why I just couldn't help but laugh that Dewdrop Daisy came up because of what I was saying just before. So this is where I'm just going to click on hide slice. There we are. So I'm just hiding the slice. So it means that next time I go to do this spin, it means that Dewdrop will not come up. And this is where I probably should go through and hide a couple of others, like I Count My Lucky Stars, Spring in Stars Hollow, Inner Works of Life, and Love Ocean. Stay tuned. I really do hope that in the last week of stitching for this spooky spring challenge that we get some more spooky stuff. It may actually end up being a case where I throw caution to the wind and go, okay, yes, Love Ocean came up, or yes, XYZ came up, but let's respin, or let's go, no, I'm just going to work on his master's voice, or whatever the other spooky stitching it is that I have, and we'll go from there. But I'm glad that Dewdrop came up, and I look forward to sharing with you the progress that I get to make on Dewdrop and the other pieces for the rest of the week. Catch you next time, and hopefully it won't be 2 weeks.